Making independent movies is hard. I've done it twice now with the movies Revealer and Holiday Holdup, and that's one of the reasons why I'm always interested in talking to other indie filmmakers and learning how they got this seemingly impossible task accomplished.
Making any art is always an uphill battle. One of these days, I'll regale our listeners with my war stories about co-writing a novel about swingers on spec. And just like writing a novel, no two journeys from script to screen are ever the same.
No, they really aren't. And that's another reason why it's so fascinating to talk with people who've scaled this mountain. People like Greg Porper and Schimke, the creative duo behind the new dark workplace comedy, Don't Tell Larry.
Porper and Schimke gave us a fascinating look inside their 10-year effort to make their first feature film. Like many indie movies, it all came down to money, endurance, and sticking to their creative guns. I'm really leaning on the conflict metaphors here, aren't I? War is hell, and so is filmmaking.
The similarities are remarkable in a lot of ways. But before we get into any more metaphors or about how filmmaking is hell, and before we get into an interview with Porper and Schimke, I do need to remind everyone to please sign up for our Patreon, especially as we head into season 2. We'll be bringing you lots of great bonus content that you won't find anywhere else, like extended episodes, bonus shorts, and much more. We're at patreon.com/the Filmographers podcast.
You can sign up for free, or you can pledge a monthly dollar amount and get cool Filmographers swag, like our very handsome coffee mugs, which I don't think either Mike or I have because we're not in our normal studios today, but they're cool. You can get one. Again, that's patreon.com/the Filmographers podcast. It's the best way to get the full Filmographers experience.
Am I a bad person?
Sometimes.
Thank you, but let me finish. If I don't invite the weird new guy to Bruce's surprise retirement party tonight,
want you two to get close, but not in an intimate way.
I'll get as close as possible without being intimate.
No.
okay.
Why wasn't Larry at my party?
Bruce Waters didn't want me invited to his own surprise party.
Huh?
This is all Bruce Waters' fault.
Yep.
Thank you both.
Larry, please tell me you didn't kill Bruce.
What? Me?
You have to put Larry in jail.
We don't have evidence.
That's so crazy.
We need to get Larry fired.
Someone's getting fired for smoking a joint in the office, so we're gonna drug test you.
What? If you get any of this on me, I will kill you.
What are you guys doing?
Nothing.
Behind my back? You're without me?
Oh, no. Oh, my God.
There you go. Is it just me, or does that smell a little like pee?
No.
No, it's you.
Okay, just checking.
No.
Someone is messing with me. If someone tried to mess with one of you, my best friends, I'd kill that person.
Is it just a coincidence that all this bad stuff is happening in the office this week?
This wasn't coincidences.
And what was it?
Karma. Please, don't be such a worrywart. There's still plenty of time for Bruce to learn his lesson as he fell from the window to the ground. It's 2,000, 3,000. Yeah. Had enough time.
Greg and John, welcome to the Filmographers podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
We're really excited to talk to you guys and learn more about Don't Tell Larry. We've got lots and lots of questions, but first I just want to lead off with, how did the two of you meet and how did the two of you decide to work together? Because you collaborate. It sounds like a very intense collaboration where you both wear a lot of hats, and that's not always easy to do. So tell us how you got that all kicked off.
Yeah, so John and I began as real life coworkers. That's how we met. We were working at a reality TV production company. I was working in development. John was an editor on one of the TV shows our company was working on. Both of us truly had a passion for scripted content, and a mutual connection was aware of this. And put us in touch because I was trying to convince my development team that our company should create scripted shows. And I was like, hey, I feel so strongly about this. I even made a little like short web series that you guys should, take on. And John got wind of this. And John, when we met, like one of the first memories I have of John was he watched like the rough cut of this 3-minute short I did called Worst Birthday Ever. And he's like, all right, this is like not bad. There's some fun stuff in here. And then he's like, can I just try something for a moment? And he just like sits down in the edit chair and like takes like the first clip and moves it to the end and does like, just does a quick move. And like, I don't know, 2 to 3 minutes later, he's like, let's watch this. And it's like 10 times better, this like 3-minute clip. And I'm like, okay, this guy gets comedy. Like the comedic sensibility that I just saw from him immediately was like, oh yeah, like I jive with that. And I'd say like that's kind of like what started it off. John, anything I'm missing there?
True story. From my perspective, very similar. Being at a reality TV production company, I wanted to do a lot of scripted. It was funny. I was a reality TV editor and I had a master's degree in directing. And so I felt like everything was like going to waste, and the company was fairly successful. So I thought, what a great time to pivot. And then our mutual friend that Greg was talking about, he's like, she told me, she's like, you should talk to Greg. He's trying to get the company to do scripted. And when she told me that, I was like, who's Greg? And she's like, it's the guy, da 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 da. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally know who that is. So as soon as she told me, I just walked out of my edit bag, went upstairs, and I just introduced myself. And I was like, hey, I hear you're doing scripted. I want to talk. So, and then the rest was, Greg had already shot that proof of concept, and I looked at it, I played with it, and we collaborated on making it to be the best it could be. And then it turned into a little CW, like CW ended up picking it up. It was called Worst Birthday Ever. And it was CW's, they were experimenting with like little comedy scripted web series stuff. And then after that, Greg and I started writing a lot together, and we did some web series together, and we were writing a lot of pilot scripts and things like that. And out of all of that came Don't Tell Larry.
Yes, which is actually, I poked around. Now, you guys will surely be able to explain this better than I can, because I poked around the seeds of Don't Tell Larry prior to the feature film that's by the time of this recording will be already released, date back quite a while. So this has been something you've had in your pocket for a bit. Yeah. Like I said, tell better than I could. You guys tell us how it went from that, I believe web series and developed along the way into what it is now, full-fledged feature movie.
So we had this was 2016. It was February 2016. Crazy to think how long ago that is.
9 years, just a mere 9 years
ago. It really feels like 25 years ago.
It's too long.
So that's when I had pitched like the initial idea, or just the title itself. I have like a running list of just like fun titles or phrases, either things that I hear people say or just random thoughts in my head. I'm like, oh, these series of words would be funny, and Don't Tell Larry happens to be one of them. And I was like, what is something that we can do with this concept? And within a span of, I don't know, maybe 4 weeks, we had 6 scripts, 3 to 5 pages each that we planned to just film all in one day. Production ended up being 2 days, but basically just like, what's a one location thing we can do? Just low budget. Mm-hmm. We used some of our friends to play the actors, all of whom were fantastic. And from there, we're like, okay, cool. We made another fun thing. We also made it with the intention of trying to have it play at the New York Television Festival, which unfortunately is no longer around, but it was a great incubator for essentially proofs of concepts for TV shows. And they were accepting short films. Most of the content that was submitted there was like web series or proofs of concepts for like half-hour shows or for hour-long pilots. And so we made it with the deadline of like, okay, we need to get this out for the NYTVF submission. And we fortunately got in, which was amazing. And we went to New York, and the first time it was screened in front of an audience, first of all, it was one of like the best feelings of my life of how well it was received. The initial one, it was like true, like wall to wall laughter for like 12 minutes where probably half the people then couldn't even hear the next joke because they were still laughing from the previous one. It was just like a truly electric atmosphere. And then the other people who've just seen it at different festivals and over time, just everyone was kind of saying like, guys, this is really good, but like you got to do more with it. You have to do more with it because we ended on a bit of a cliffhanger intentionally. We actually did shoot a full completed version, but we left out like the last little episode, which we will probably actually include as a special feature down the line on our Blu-ray DVD. But I think seeing how well it was positively received and the fact that we also just love this character, Larry, that we had created, Kyle Kennedy, who was another coworker. Yeah. We met him and we wrote the script for this, you know, the Larry character. Then when we presented it to him, and then when he got on set with his improv background, he took every single line and joke and like took it up to an 11, and he just brought that character to life. And so we just knew we wanted to work with Kyle. So John and I, you know, brainstormed, and we kind of sat with it for a little while because it went around to different festivals. And then I'd say probably in 2017 at this time, we were thinking, okay, let's like, you know, as a follow-up to these companies, these now defunct companies we were meeting with, like CISO, they're like no longer around, Super Deluxe. But it's like, let's like create like, what's the pilot version of this? What's the TV show version? So we developed it into, you know, half-hour comedy, you know, made the pitch deck. We did pitch it around to whoever we had connections with. And the idea of like constantly escalating these like secrets that two coworkers were keeping from their third unhinged coworker was a pretty hard format to adhere to when it was like a half-hour episode. So after about a year of that, John, I think it was about a year, then we're like, well, this kind of also lends itself to a feature. Like, let's try that route. And that was then November 2018 is when John and I were in an IHOP in mid-Wilshire. I remember that so clearly. And we're like, okay,
Me too.
This is the this is the genesis of like, there are elements from the web series that we love. We love this character. We love the idea that there's an invite to a company party that doesn't get sent to our weird guy. And then ultimately we're going to end with absolute chaos and death and disaster. And how do we get there? And so that's what kind of kicked off the screenwriting process for the feature. John, I can let you take it from there if you want.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's it. That's pretty much how it was. I know for me, I always, you know, I love the medium of feature length films over television. I like, you know, I don't mind sitting there for 2 or 3 hours. Don't Tell Larry's not 3 hours, it's 90 minutes. But, you know, I like sitting there and getting a beginning, middle, and end in one sitting. With TV, it's just so much of a commitment. And, you know, and I love shows like Breaking Bad. That's a commitment I'm always down for. But you know, when we got to the point to turn Don't Tell Larry into a movie, I was very excited because that's something I've always wanted to do, is just make film, make movies. And so I really enjoyed the process of adapting our pilot and expanding it out into a longer story. And like what Greg said, we wanted to start with this little white lie and escalate wildly into who's going to bury who in a forest. And we had the opportunity to explore that, and it was a lot of fun exploring that, writing together as a feature. It was there was a lot of barrel laughs writing, for sure.
Yeah,
I want to get into the actual production and how, you know, from page to screen stuff in a moment, but I want to talk a little bit too, or hear you talk, I won't talk, about, you know, writing comedy. I mean, writing comedy, I think, is the hardest thing to do. I'm a novelist, not primarily a screenwriter. I try to lace my fiction with humor, but I find writing sustained comedy to be the hardest thing to do. So it sounds like you guys had it was based around the character you've created and the premise, but like, talk more about your philosophy of comedy and like maybe some of the things, the films or performances or directors you had in mind, or, you know, just some of the comps you had in mind while you were trying to create your comedy.
Greg and I definitely love the Coen brothers, and Coen brothers definitely make some great dark comedies. For instance, I love Big Lebowski. I love Fargo. Even though Big Lebowski is probably less grounded than Fargo, but, you know, it is trying to be our Don't Tell Larry could be a little, it's, you know, maybe a little less grounded than what the Coen brothers do, but that was something that we definitely both gravitated towards. I mean, for me, comedy is so, it's the reason why comedy is so difficult because it's all based on taste. You know, it's like what color is. There are people who hate green and love red, or prefer purple over blue. But at the same time, too, it's like when you're writing, it's more about, you know, like structure and setup, builds, payoffs, and things, and what's at stake. You know, I like to think of it as like a Ferrari. You know, that you could have a red Ferrari or a blue Ferrari. It's still a Ferrari under the hood. It's like a really fast sports car. But you being like, oh, I hate blue Ferraris. It's like, shut up. It's a Ferrari, you know? And the same thing for wine. Everybody likes to drink wine out of a wine glass, but like people prefer the jammy wines or the tart wines or whatever. And so for us, Greg, we're really, really jammy wine that we were trying to put in a glass. And, you know, people who don't like jammy wine, you're not going to like this, you know? So it is based on taste. And we've definitely gotten the feedback. Like I've had people hate this movie, and then I've had people love this movie. And we've had a movie theater filled with people who loved it, just barrel laughing out of control, which is a great feeling for sure. But, you know, it's not, you know, that's what makes comedy so hard, because I think it relies heavily more on flavor than anything else in terms of storytelling. I don't know, Greg, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I a lot of great things in there. And I also just want to add, just like with approach to comedy. And I think this is something that just as an evolution of just like the stuff that I've worked on in the past too. I think when the actors are trying to play something for laughs, it usually just fails every time. And the fact that you have these characters, especially in Don't Tell Larry, that take every moment and treat it as like a life or death, it's so important to them. As a result, as like someone watching it, it's just funny because like this person just cares so much about this one thing that's really important to them, but like in the grand scheme of things, like isn't that big of a deal. But then that kind of lends itself to these scenarios and situations that like if you're just not a part of them, if you're just like a spectator, it's just a lot of fun. And I think that's playing something for laughs is usually like destined to fail. Just playing it almost straight in a way, but the situation being funny, I think it's just been a lot more impactful. Obviously, there are exceptions to that, but I guess, you know, in the case, like I love also just like outlandish, wild, like just again, belly laugh, sort of ridiculous comedy. I'm like a big Mel Brooks fan. Like my favorite movie, even still today, is Blazing Saddles. I just love how ridiculous it is. It is absolutely ridiculous. You break the fourth wall. All of a sudden now you're in a dance number and there's a whole brawl going on. Like I just love how you ended up in the Warner Brothers set in the middle of like the Western movie. Like, it's just so ridiculous. But like, that's why I like to watch movies, is because I just want to have fun. I want to escape, and I just like want to be entertained. So I definitely think that was like a driving factor for like me and John with like why we made this movie, because it's like, we just wanted to make a movie that we enjoyed, that would just be just like fun. And it's like not about the real world. Like we're not taking ourselves seriously. We're intentional that like, hey, you're just supposed to like watch and just like come along for the ride. Like it's okay to like have a little bit of a willing suspension of disbelief. Like what you're seeing is like, just like take it in. And if you view it that way, it's a lot of fun.
How much of the humor came out of you guys cracking each other up in the writing process, and how much came out of the filming and improvisation process?
It was definitely 50-50, because we had like our joke situation set up that was written in the script, and then Kyle would come in, and Kyle he is definitely an expert when it comes to improv. He's a main cast member at the Groundlings Theater in Los Angeles, and he teaches improv as well. And so he does a really good job at just taking whatever comes to him immediately and just spitting it out and seeing if it's funny. And 9 times out of 10, it's always funny with Kyle, just because he's so tall, he's so domineering, and then him just saying ridiculous things. It was just so funny. And I know Greg and I, like we literally had to like put our hands over our mouths not to ruin the take because it was so funny. So we would set the foundation, and then all of a sudden Kyle would just like set something on top of it that was just so beautiful we could have never thought of. And it was like a nice pairing relationship for the outcome of what happened.
Something that I wanted to add that, John, that you had talked about people seeing it in the theater and having these big laughs. To me, I find that like comedy and horror are generally like the two genres that like seeing with an audience really enhances the experience and makes it so much better. Like, have you had that experience of like taking the movie around that like the reception is just so much bigger and better? Like, isn't it just better watching with an audience?
100%. I think just the nature of cinema is congregational. It's, originally people watched movies in a movie theater together. And I think some of the most incredible experiences I've had watching movies were in the movie theater and in a packed movie theater. And so I do think there is something infectious when you're in a room with a lot of people, especially if they love the movie. You know, oddly enough, I remember seeing The Big Lebowski opening weekend in a packed theater and just uncontrollable laughter throughout the whole movie. Same thing for Liar Liar, even earlier on. I mean, this goes to show how old I am. I was like I was a kid seeing Liar Liar in the theater, and I remember I saw it in this movie theater that had a balcony. So, and I don't know, it felt like there were 800 people in there because I was young, but I'm sure it was like maybe 300 or something. Still a big theater. But I just remember it was so electric in there, and everybody was just laughing, and even all the emotional beats hit and everything. It was such a great experience. And similarly, that's what has happened with Don't Tell Larry. Because of the nature of the comedy, and there's it isn't a movie you definitely experience. There is something people really enjoy. We've had like, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, I think we've had 4 theatrical screenings so far of this movie with a packed theater. And me personally, I'm always surprised of like, oh my gosh, they love this movie. We made a movie that was funny to us. And so that's what we stayed true to. But it was crazy how much the movie worked in the theater. I do believe there's a little bit of magic. I'm going to sound crazy here for a second, but there is a little bit of magic in the movie theater. Even the movies that I really didn't care for, watching them in the theater, it was still like there is something about watching that in a dark room on a big screen was still fantastical about it. But I know not a lot of people get that experience anymore. It's a weird time. I think younger people are watching movies more than older people like myself. I mean, I'm a parent, I have a son, so it's like it's like if I'm going to go see a movie, I'm like, I got to see the 10:30 a.m. showing. So by the time I get out, I can go pick up my son from school or whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of went on a tangent there. But
No, it is a powerful thing, cinema. And it's like what you're saying with kids though, like, people were kind of moaning, and I won't digress too long, but people like moaning about the Minecraft movie and the experience people, kids were having, and maybe they were a little unruly and etc. But like at the core of them seeing Minecraft to nearly $1 billion worldwide, these were kids who probably don't go to a movie theater that often, who now went and were like, wow, this was a fun experience. I went to the movie, like, don't throw stuff at the screen, too often, stuff like that. Like, let's learn some behavior, from this point. But like, they got a taste of that magic, and that's what's important, because it is better.
That's a great way of looking at it. I think a lot of people give Minecraft some grief because it's not really a movie. It's just like an experience for people who are obsessed with the video game. My son is obsessed with Minecraft. So obviously he went and saw the movie twice. But what's interesting is when we see a billboard to a movie now, when we're driving down the street, he'll say like, "Oh, can we go watch that?" And it's interesting. I'm not smart enough to put two and two together. You just blew my mind. Like my son like wants to go see Lilo and Stitch, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to sit through that. But the fact that there is an interest in going to the cinema is that's the silver lining in all of that.
We took our 21-year-old daughter to the Minecraft movie, and because she played Minecraft her whole life, and I don't give a crap about Minecraft, but that was the most fun thing I've seen in a theater all year. So
wow,
yeah,
I'm on board.
It's so funny, yeah, too, because even like as you're all talking about this, I'm like having now just distinct like memories of like being in middle school and every weekend with friends going to see a movie. And it's not just obviously about seeing the movie together, but then it's like the fact that we had that shared experience and then gave us just stuff to talk about like the following week, or we're quoting about, or like, remember when this happened, and just that like shared experience. That's why it's like, it's really important for John and I to have this movie, like have some sort of theatrical presence. And we're really fortunate that we have that, just because I think we made this movie like understanding that it's going to be mostly seen on streaming, but that it is a movie that would be fun to see in the theaters. Like our like mission statement we told ourselves like in the very beginning that we really tried to stay true to is like, we want people to obviously laugh out loud, to like the moments where they literally gasp, like they go, oh, like, and then moments where they like actually like cringe and like are physically uncomfortable and even like talking to the screen. And when you're home alone, those things can still happen. But when you're in a theater, it's like definitely going to happen. Just I think by the way we set things up, and even with the comedy too, I think there's so many small little nuggets that John and I put into this movie, like little running gags that are in the background that like when you're watching at home, whether it's on a TV screen or your computer screen, a lot of those things you're just not going to see. But when you're in the theater and like looking at that big screen, like those things will be there.
Crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Literally little things like that, right? So yeah, that's
good catch.
Yeah, good catch.
Yeah, I think I got one of them. I was laughing at that because like, what is that acronym?
Yeah, I saw that. The first time I visited the Fine Arts Building, I thought it was magic.
Gather around, my children, and I'll tell a tale of woe.
I also thought it would vanish from my life. I never imagined I would become part of the community here. But then my friends opened a bookstore on the second floor and started telling me,
you should get a studio in the building.
I already had an office at home, so I told them,
yeah, right. All right, here we go. 8th floor, going up.
But the more time I spent here, the more I began to fall under the spell of the Fine Arts Building. Sure, I love the beautiful architectural details and going to work in a place where so much history has been made. But more than that, I love working in a building where history is still being made. Where art of all kinds is created by extraordinarily passionate people. I honestly can't believe how much stuff is happening here. I'm not a historian. I usually write novels, but I wanted to tell the story of this building and pay tribute to the artists, artisans, and building employees who have made this place so special. Too often, the arts are seen as a luxury, but they are essential to our humanity. I hope people who read this book will be inspired to become patrons of the arts. And I also hope they'll visit the Fine Arts Building, whether in person or through the pages of my book.
Have a good day.
To Mike's point, one of the films that maybe elicit the best kind of response in theater, horror and comedy. I mean, you guys have elements of both of those in Don't Tell Larry. How did you decide that the the things going crazy part of your movie was going to end up taking such a horrific twist, because it is really kind of like, it starts out with the classic comedy of misunderstanding and then goes up to 11 with, oh my gosh, he actually is crazy.
Yeah, I would start with basically saying, I think that's actually one thing we knew from the beginning with this script when structuring, is like, we know we wanted to start light and fluffy, and we knew we wanted to end dark. Like that's the thing, like we kind of really knew from the beginning. So the puzzle, the reason why we had so many rewrites and different versions of the script and changed certain plot points a lot, especially with like Susan and her journey, was because we were trying to make it still feel natural, because there is a gradual, shift, but like you can't just go from like, you can't just switch it like that. And so I don't know. I think there are certain points, like we always had our midpoint like set up. We always had like our 3/4 of the way through. We pretty much knew how it was going to end, and we knew how it was going to start. And we knew we wanted a scene in a supply closet with characters drinking pee. As ridiculous as that was, that's just something we really wanted. Those were like the initial like structural beats that like were always kind of there from the beginning.
I'm imagining your to-do list with the, drink, pee, check,
We did have that, a checklist.
Yeah.
But I think that was the thing too. It's like, we really wanted to see a movie like this done this way. And in a way, it was an experiment for us to see if we could do it. We wanted to try it. And, people that we respect in the past that we've pitched it to and things like that, a lot of people were like, oh, you got to either commit to the comedy or you got to commit to the horror element. You can't have both. It's going to be too confusing. And I understand that judgment, that wisdom, I would say. But at the same time, there's like so many people that Greg and I knew where this is people wanted to see a movie like this. Like, if we wanted to see a movie like this, doesn't mean we are the only you're telling me out of 7 billion, 8 billion people on planet Earth, Greg and I were the only 2 people who wanted to see a movie like this? I don't believe it. So we just wanted to stay true to like what we wanted to see in a movie. And so we did that. It's crazy because when I do watch the movie, and the movie's I know this is going to be after, but like the movie's opening up this weekend in Los Angeles. So, I mean, we're practically sold out, but there's still a little bit more time to get your ticket. But every time I'm in the movie theater watching it with a packed theater, I'm always like, I can't believe we actually went through with this. Like it's a ridiculous movie, but so much fun. I'm like, it's so I can understand why people didn't. I can understand why people were leery of it in the beginning, but for people who really want to see a movie like this, it delivers. They love it, and they're so happy that they watched it, which is like us. We're so happy that we made this movie. It was so difficult. Nobody wanted us to make this movie. Nobody wanted us to finish this movie. It took us forever. That's what independent film is. It's literally, it's like you have one sword and you have a 10-mile hallway and it's filled with bad guys that you're supposed to chop through. Like nobody wants you to get to the other end. And all of a sudden we're at the other end and Greg and I are looking back at all the dead bodies, old boy style, in the hallway. Right? And being like, oh, damn, we did it. We did it. Now you can rent this movie, So, it puts a smile on my face when I think about all the crazy stuff we put in this movie, all the crazy stuff we committed to. Our intuition was like, yes, we had to filter out the nose, and I'm happy with it. I'm proud of it.
Well, that's why I want to pick your brain about that, especially. I've been there. I've made a couple indie films.
Cool.
And everything you described is
comedies.
One comedy, one horror, but one horror that has some comedy in it. And it's funny, I've actually, a quick aside, I've been in rooms pitching straight horror comedies, and like, man,
nobody likes them.
Nothing's going over worse than that. Like, it's crazy how unwilling are. But you could point to, how many Evil Dead, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. There's so many great horror comedies that people love and do really well. but nobody wants to hear that. So,
well, it's interesting too, because I think in that art of like you're wanting to blend genres. I mean, the best example is Sam Raimi's Evil Dead. And, but the way Sam Raimi pitched that and raised money on it, it's literally a horror movie. Cause I remember when I was a kid watching that movie, it's like, oh, check out this, like, evil demon possessed lady in a cabin. I didn't know it was funny. Like Bruce Campbell's character Ash is like so iconic in that movie. But when I rented the movie when I was a kid, I wasn't expecting the comedy. And when the comedy was like coming, I was like, wow, this is funny, And
it's goofy. And then he made it again and did goofier,
Yeah, it doesn't. Every time, each one goes off the rails. And then, but sometimes I wonder to myself, and maybe this is something Greg and I will try this out next time. Is you just pitch a straight comedy or you just pitch a straight horror film, and then you go yoink and you pull out the pink pages of the thing you actually wanted to do and you start shooting it and you start cutting it together, and then people are like, wait a minute, I thought this was a horror. Oh yeah, it's a horror.
Yeah. So. Or you do like you say with Mel Brooks, his famous story, like he showed, I think it was your Blazing
Black and White. Was the Black and White thing?
No, where he was like showed it to some executives, either Saddles or Young Frankenstein. They're like, oh, you got to take out this, and he's like, yeah, no, you're right. He's like, oh, you got to lose this. He's like, oh, no, absolutely, well, yeah, gonna cut it right out. And he like, I changed none of it, showed it again. They're like, oh, great, we're good to go. Like you just like, these execs don't know what they're looking at. So, but I do want to touch on point. That is, yeah. I mean, well, when you're Mel Brooks, but I wanted to pick your guys' brain specifically about the journey, the old boy journey of making an indie film, which I've never heard it put so perfectly. How did you go about, like, what was that journey of like funding and distribution? I know it's a lot, where we're trying to, that conversation, we're trying to squeeze a watermelon through a, chain link fence with this, but like, what is the briefest version that you could say of like getting your movie essentially funded, filmed, post, made, distributed, all that? Because it's hard. It is old boy.
Yeah. So to very quickly first piggyback on what John said, which is related to this, very quickly we were realizing, because obviously the best case scenario is like you pitch a movie and you go to someone who has a lot of money or a studio and they're like, cool, here's the money to make it and here's your salaries to make it and you get to make what you want. That wasn't going to happen. John and I realized that very quickly, but we wanted to make this movie and we didn't want to have we didn't really want to have to report to someone to say, you can't do that, because we know we were going to get that because it doesn't fit in the box. Like from an initial buyer's perspective, I understand the hesitancies. I still think from a fan perspective, they're going to love it. And I'm hopeful that there's going to be more movies that still embrace this like genre blend. But the passion that John and I had for it and the fact that we had a web series already, like a proof of concept, was very helpful when then going out to, and I say this like literally every person I've crossed paths with in some way, people I hadn't spoken to in years, like my childhood Little League coach, or my childhood pediatrician. Like I just went down the list of like, who do I know? Who can I reach out to? Told them about the project, either directly asked them or asked them if they knew someone. And, eventually, like, I don't know, I would say it took nearly a year to probably put together, the several hundreds of thousands of dollars to get us to even the production point. We weren't even going to start production and even move forward with pre-production until we actually had, a certain amount to move forward with. The other thing too that John and I knew going into this was that like we ourselves were going to put money into this, and both of us were at the time when the industry was in a much better place, we were both working regularly. So we were working, steadily. So we were writing like the scripts like between 6 and 9 a.m. Then we'd go to work. Then maybe we'd write again in the evenings. But both of us were saving up with the intention that we would be putting money in. And I think that's the other thing too, that when people saw that that's what, like we did that as well, like we had a stake in that and we were taking that financial risk too, that was really helpful. And, I wasn't pitching to people saying, hey, if you pitch in this, you're going to make millions of dollars. Like if that's your intention, like don't do this. But you are going to support people who are, you're going to give people jobs in the art, arts, you're going to employ people, you're going to be a part of something really cool. You can, write off your losses next year when we go into production, and you offset your taxes. Like, just things like that were helpful. And I think it was just a lot of that. It ended up being, it was, let's say, like, I think 500 people. I think I ended up like kind of doing some variation of like a formal pitch too, and 38 different, people or like sets of families kind of came on board to at least like kind of like piecemeal how we were able to make it.
It was everyone, like everyone that we knew, we pitched them on putting money into Don't Tell Larry. And that's the way I think, the one, I think because Greg and I had experience, just because we work in film and TV, we put together a preliminary budget of like, okay, we know we can hire Bob, we know we can hire Bill, these are the rates, I'm going to edit the movie, so there's no cost there, just what is it really going to cost? And that allowed us to at least have a ballpark figure of what to ask. And then so the people who were serious, they could look at that budget and be like, look, we've crunched the numbers, this is what we think we can make this movie for, here's all the line item of it. And, all the great points that Greg was talking about was in the pitch. And some people caught the vision because they liked the web series. Or to me, I also saw if like anybody was going to put any money into this movie, it was more about because they believed in people like Greg or myself or us as a team, way more so than just like the scripts or the pitch. I think people genuinely who did invest in this project did genuinely enjoy Don't Tell Larry and saw the potential in it, but I think they believed in us more to like make a finished film based on that web
huge
series.
Yeah.
I love that detail so much. I think the common image of people like hustling to raise funds to make an independent film is often that people are investing with the hope or expectation that it's going to be a hit and they're going to like get a payoff. And I love so much your approach of just saying, that's not necessarily what this is about. Like, this is about supporting the arts community. And I mean, that's a wonderful pitch and a much more honest pitch. And then if things go amazingly well and people get paid back or even earn money, then all the better, right?
You're absolutely right. And there was actually I was introduced to someone who, I guess, what's the term? They're a bit of a shark, and they were going to put in over $250,000. There were so many stipulations of like, so I'm going to get at least 20% investment back, like 6 months by this date afterward. And like, it was a very aggressive deal that like, yes, it'd be nice to have that money up front, but that's just not, I just said, probably like, I just don't think this is the right opportunity. And I, don't regret that at all. That was the right move. It would not have worked well if that were the case, because that's just not, how things work. Like, it just, with independent films, especially when we don't have like that big, studio backing.
And even the length of time it takes to recoup, like, if you are making money and generating income through VOD or box office, whatever, it's a long time to just get that money that's actually real and exists, not to mention like the hopeful of like it existing for long enough and you getting repeat business, whatever, word of mouth, etc. Like, it's a long path. It's a long path to recouping your money.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So if he's like 6 months, 20%, like that's just a loan, man.
Right.
I have a friend who made a film for like low six figures, and he finally made all of his money back, I think 8 years after but he did it. I mean, he did it, and he literally had a little extra, and I'm like, what are you going to do with that little extra money? He's like, I'm making another movie, and he started shooting a horror film with it.
Awesome.
Well, for the aspiring filmmakers who are listening today and who are going to watch Don't Tell Larry and say, hey, I want to do that too, do you mind sharing what your projected and actual budget ended up being?
There's like the actual cash, and then there was the amount of, because this is the other thing actually too that I want to mention, is the fact that there were so many people along the way who lent us services that, whether we got something for a discount or reduced rate, or it was like hey, like next time you hit us up. And I just want to first of all also just shout out like Revolution Post, who did our coloring, gave us like an amazing deal for post-production services, like, you know, tens and tens of thousands of dollars of an expense, you know, was a fraction of that because of working with them. Or Juniper Post, who did our post audio. So out of pocket cash, we were, I think, a little over $500,000. But when we did like the actual, like, what is everything, like, okay, here's what this actually should cost, the line items for the people who are, you know, just taking like back end for certain stuff, or like for John and I, it is over $1 million. Like, that's what it actually would cost if you're not getting these favors. I think it was like 1.1.
Yeah.
And so it's doing literally every little thing possible. I mean, even like, for example, like buying space heaters from Amazon, because we had an overnight shoot, and then one of them wasn't even used, but someone from set accidentally threw out the box, but it wasn't used. I went to buy then a box, repackage the heater into the box, and send it back. And so now that's not a cost anymore. It was that, like, every day there was like 10 of what that represents happening too. So this was, if those things didn't happen, it would be even more, just because it's like, you're paying people for time, you're paying, you know, for equipment. That was the other thing too. We got such great deals on equipment. Our DP, we used the camera he already had. So it's, there's just that you have to get really creative also with how you put it all together.
So it's like friendships and relationships really helped you double your budget in a way.
Yeah.
Always.
Absolutely.
Always. And I will say too, for, you know, somebody, you know, wanting to make their first feature or wanting to make film, you know, I will encourage people to think about a smaller crew and think about what's going to give you the most time to make your movie in terms of like production. Because once you start getting, like, once you're having wardrobe, makeup, a lot of crew members, everything else, you know, and for us, our budget got a little higher because we're like, we want to put some recognizable talent in this movie to give this thing legs, which is why we hired a casting director who believed in the script, that got the script to Ed Begley Jr. He loved the script and he's like, I'm in it, but, you know, he didn't do it for free. But and same thing for like Dot Marie Jones, but you know, in the past, like just when Greg and I were doing web series and stuff like that, and even like earlier on when I was younger, I've made so many short films. I've probably made like 30 plus short films in my past. I've been making films since I was in high school, and it's always, if you just get a few people, few lights, and then time. The more time you have, you can like block with actors and experiment. The more you're going to be able to play with later in post-production when you're editing. And the thing is like, what makes cinema is when you start editing your movie together. So get as much material as you can shooting so you can make your cinema later. And then you have, when you're editing, that's the thing, like for Greg and I mean, there's a billion ways you can cut a movie, and you're hoping when you're sitting there editing, you can look at all billion versions. It's impossible to do it, but you get to explore, you get to experiment. If something doesn't work out, you can start all over. It's just like when you're writing a blank final draft page, you know, it has so many opportunities, as much as like what you have with your footage that you've spent shooting to cut together, and you get to now explore and really tell a story that way. I think for me, what's interesting is that, you know, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but I've been classically trained as a filmmaker, you know, where I went to traditional film school. I went to the American Film Institute, got my master's in directing there, you know, and there it's just like, oh, watch this movie and it's blah, 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 blah. We get it. And then after that, I'm like a reality TV editor, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? But what's really interesting is what I've learned as a reality TV editor is the most powerful place in storytelling, in cinema, in visual, what this medium is, whatever I'm like not saying, I can't identify it completely of what it is done in the edit. And literally in reality TV, they shoot things once, you have two angles, and they're like, go monkey, make it watchable for thousands of people. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And in there, you literally toiling over making these 2 shots with no story idea or a vague story idea, and then giving it a concrete beginning, middle, and end to make. And at that time too, like making people not want to switch to another channel because it was, reality TV was all over cable. It taught me how much more power there is to tell your story while you're editing. And so you have a great script, you try to spend as much time as you can shooting that movie, but don't cut yourself short in post and edit your movie until you're done. Greg and I spent 3 months plus cutting this movie together. And I know I get phone calls like, hey, are you available to cut a feature for 4 weeks? No, bang. That's crazy. I'm not a lunatic. You need 4 months, not 4 weeks.
Yeah.
However, though, I have taken those jobs because I've been so hard up for money. I cut a movie with Frank Stallone. It was like some mobster movie, and literally they only had enough money to pay an editor for 4 weeks. And I was like, I'll do it. I was that broke. But I'm just saying, like, if you want to start getting into filmmaking and make your movie, do it. Like, if you spend as less money as possible, spend as much time in production, and don't stop editing until you feel like you're done, and show it to people. That's what Greg and I did. We had a cut. We forced our friends to all congregate together, and we're like, watch it. What do you think? We hate it. Da-da-da-da. Okay, great. We go back and we start working on it again. So I can't stress that enough.
The other thing too, on top of what John was saying is, and this is something that definitely gets overlooked by a lot of independent filmmakers, is the importance of marketing your movie and getting it out there, and how you present it to people and how you show it to people, and what can you do to expand on the experience of your movie so that you don't just finish the movie and then never think about it again. And I think that's something that, like, we've spent a lot of time over the last year creating endless promos, behind the scenes stuff. We've been in contact with multi-million-dollar brand like organizations to try and do some collaborations with them. We talked with local businesses. Last week, I was with my barber and I went to his hair salon and I took a video of him and of looking at pictures of the character's hair in the movie, like the different cast members, and saying, what would you do to fix it up? And now what does that do? That obviously, and I also promoted his business at the same time. So now it's something that he's going to want to show all of his people. Hey, cool, look at this thing I did with this movie. And now there's a whole new set of people that want to see this movie. I think that's a big thing too, where, I don't know how we'll end up, but like right now we're developing a video game, just like a simple desktop game, like something that you would play at your desk when you don't want to be fully listening in on the meeting that you're on. Whether it's little things with merch, we're trying just to do like an ongoing podcast, just ways to keep engaging with Don't Tell Larry beyond just the movie itself. And I think we had that mindset going into it. And I think with a lot of filmmakers, if they had more of that mindset of like, obviously maximize your time for production, John, maximize what you can do in the edit, but then also think beyond that and what else can you do to like get it out there and be creative, because there are so many things out there. So people will watch you and then forget about you a day later. How do you stay relevant? And then that also allows you to be seen as like, oh, you're the filmmaker guy. Like, you're not the reality TV editor anymore. You're the guy that makes this really funny movie, because that's what you want to really be doing. So right. I just want to stress that as well.
Movies vanish. Like we live in this sea of, content and shit. Good stuff. Good things just vanished. Come out, don't make a blip, and they're just gone. They're gone in the, the annals of whatever streaming service they're on, So like, no, I mean, it's awesome to hear you have such a good head on your shoulders, which is actually the question that I had about in terms of like distribution. Like, I know we talk about having, having a theatrical release. You're playing in LA the weekend of its opening. You've done some screenings already. What is the strategy? Where are people able to find it? Like, how is it going to roll out into visibility for anybody and everybody to watch?
For the first week that it's out, it will be playing in several theaters in Los Angeles, as well as in theaters outside of Seattle, Chicago, Minneapolis, and Detroit. while simultaneously, because this is a limited theatrical day and date release, it will be available on Amazon to rent or buy, as well as on Apple TV to stream. It'll be on some other services as well, but I think to consolidate the message, again, as part of marketing, no reason to tell everyone to go to these 10 places. Just say, like, go to Amazon and watch it. Just that's our message. Like, go watch it on Amazon. The other thing that I feel strongly about is because of how great the communal experience is of this movie, and how I really do think our target audience, like 20s and 30s, but I definitely think like it's definitely skews younger in some of our humor, is I really, in the fall, I want to go around to college campuses, and I want to be able to show it at different universities. I will be going to the Chicago area to show it at my alma mater, Northwestern. And I want to maybe, while I'm there, also do some like screenings, maybe at the Music Box Theater, even if it's a one-off screening.
Totally.
So I definitely want to be doing that. And then with some of these universities as well, I actually want to kind of tie it in with maybe like even a guest lecture or something about kind of what we're talking about now. But that way, then it's now a connection with a whole new group of people. Like these students it actually will help stick more. It'll be like, oh yeah, I watched that movie. And this guy talked for 45 minutes about, some stuff related to it. And some of it I remember and some of it I don't, but it's just like, it's a way to kind of just be more direct with people. And like, I think when we were looking for distribution, we wanted to be with a partner that would give us the flexibility and creativity to actually still have the ability to connect directly with our audiences. Like a lot of distributors that gave us offers basically said, okay, you give us the movie and we do the rest. That's it. Yep. Working with Level 33, what I like is that we got to we noted the trailer. The Keir, we designed the promos. Like, it's like what John and I, it's an extension of the movie because we got to then create the promos and we're using our brand and our style of humor. And then in terms of releasing, like, we have a lot of flexibility there. So I would say that's like been really important for us.
What you'll find is that these distributors have built-in deals with streaming companies, and they have to supply X amount of hours or movies or whatever the contract stipulates. So you're just feeding the requirement, basically.
Right.
And there's no differentiation between your movie or show and somebody else's movie or show. They're just feeding the machine. That's really all it is. Like, that's something I've learned. That's I'm glad it's so smart, because you have to have control. You have to have control and be able to take it to college campuses, to indie movie theaters, to everywhere and anywhere. I mean, look at the Hundreds of Beavers model, which is it's kind of a 1 in a million in a way because it's so unique, and I actually love that movie. But like, they really kind of taught what's potentially the modern movie indie release, where it's like you have to do it yourself, and you have to literally go and take it to movie theaters, say play this movie, and then you take it to the next one and the next one and the next one, and hopefully garner word of mouth and garner some interest and garner some attraction. Everything that you're saying, like controlling that stuff, but also like building in like fun stuff around it that makes the visibility continuous and fun and interesting and keeps it going. So like, I love what you're saying. I really love it. And by the way, I also went to Western, so kudos to
awesome. That's awesome. I love that. I mean, even as simple as it is, I don't see, like, even right there, that is like a gift box that we're sending around to different influencers and creators, and inside, whether it's t-shirts or notebooks, or literally a little mini tutorial about how to eat a raisin off of a pencil tip. And we give them a raisin, a pencil, and a pencil sharpener. Just little things like that, I think, is just super important. I love that we have that flexibility. And that was the other thing too. Like, just because you go with a distributor, we were doing just as much work as if we distributed it ourselves. And for the longest time, I was really strongly considering just we do it ourselves. But to have a little bit more of a support system, it does add a level of legitimacy that I think there's like that necessary almost rite of passage still that, I was torn, right? Because I think you're absolutely right, Mike. Like, you can take this to, you're the ones who are going to fight the most for your film. You're the one who's going to actually put it out there. No one's going to care more about your film than you. And that doesn't change whether you have a distributor or not. And I think you're right. I think that the game is changing, and I'm hopeful that more filmmakers will continue to take ownership of their work, because there's so much power in like the finished product.
It's actually really encouraging, like, to see. I think it's helpful to theaters. I think it's helpful to indie movie theaters, or indie movie makers. Like, it just creates a little bit more excitement, and the magic of that experience that we're talking about makes it a little unique. Don't Tell Larry's playing like 1 or 2 nights at the Music Box. So gotta come see it. You gotta come see it now. And then you have more of an audience and you're at this great movie house to go see it. And it just makes it special. And that should be special.
You've got a lot of work ahead of you promoting Don't Tell Larry. Have you had any time to think about what's next? Are you kicking around any other ideas? Do you guys plan to work together on a film again?
Yeah, John, you want to start? Because you have also a unique situation too.
Yeah, well, Greg and I had definitely already, we have written another script that is a dark comedy and is also Don't Tell Larry-esque. We have a few other ideas. I mean, Greg and I have been writing together for a long time. So if anybody asked us, what do you got? If you're like, well, if you got 2 hours, we'll pitch you everything. But I was fortunate last year. I directed a romance Western, another script that I had written a long time ago that randomly got picked up by a independent production company as well. That's going to come out later this fall.
What's the title?
It's called Where the Wind Blows, and it's an adaptation it's an old romance Western book by the same title by Caroline Fife. And but I mean, I have that coming out this year as well. It's interesting though. The reason why that movie got made though is because the Ashley Elaine, her production company, AE Productions, they went to one of our Don't Tell Larry screenings. And after they went to that screening, I had sent her a script like a year before. She was like asking for, do you got anything, do you got anything for a female audience? And I was like, here you go. I brushed it off. Something I wrote a long time ago. And she saw the movie and she was like, oh my gosh, I got to read that script. And she read that script. And then it was like 2 months later, she greenlit that to get made. So I'm hoping more people, I'm not hoping, I'm counting on like more people seeing Don't Tell Larry. I think once the audience gets bigger, knock on wood, that's why Greg and I are pushing for marketing and stuff, that we can get an audience, because Greg and I have this like weird, when we're together, it's interesting too. It's almost like making a cocktail. Like you got bourbon over here that has its own complexity and its own character. And then you got like vermouth over here. But like if you put them together and you put a cherry in it, you get a Manhattan. And it's like it's a different drink. And I think Greg and we create this like different drink together. And I hope if people want to make it, the bar's open. So we're ready to start mixing.
Yeah.
I love that analogy, particularly because I drink a lot of Manhattans.
Oh, I love Manhattans too. You're in good company here.
I love that. Yeah, because we have, John, as you were right, like we have our products together, and then each of us have our own separate ones. So John has his Western. I think everything that I do is there's always that like dark comedy or edginess to it. I can't. It's hard for me to work on something else, because even if it's something completely unrelated, I'm going to say like, well, how can I make this poignant drama dark and edgy when it's just not appropriate? So yeah, there's been a few. There's a Christmas comedy script that John and I developed that I was kind of spearheading with the writing when John was then working on Where the Wind Blows, that we're excited about. And then there's an action rom-com that I'm excited about. Again, it's not kind of like Don't Tell Larry, but like you could tell that like it almost would be like in the same universe of it, where it's like a little bit ridiculous, slightly heightened reality, but just like a lot of fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's just gonna be a fun time.
I won't lie. Don't Tell Larry has been a very challenging thing, bringing this to market, and then here it's coming out, and we're talking to good folks like you and everything, but already the writing's on the wall. There's like people who are going to love the movie, and there's people who are not going to love the movie, and then there's going to be the because Mike was saying earlier, like it takes a long time to make your money back and everything. There's a part of me that's like, I just want to do a horror movie. I just want like a guaranteed like cash grab. So at least I don't feel like I'm just burning money wherever I go, because I don't want that reputation. So I just don't, because like we've talked to so many distributors, like, if you had a horror, if it was more horror, we would have bought it. It's like, and it's like, I do have horror. I mean, I've written some horror scripts in the past, and I know Greg and I we've been developing some horror scripts in our Manhattan cocktail hats. But I think that the one thing this is just my approach. It's like you write things and you have things that you want to do and explore all of them. And in a weird, like, I don't know, like granola way, you're just kind of like, the universe is going to reveal what's going to get made next anyways. And then you get that, when you get that signal or that sign, you go lean into it, So for us, that was like Don't Tell Larry. And like, I adapted the book into a screenplay for Where the Wind Blows. I had adapted that 10 years ago or 12 years ago. And I just was like, I guess it's done. It was a good experience, whatever. And then all of a sudden it was like, nope, you're making this one next. So, and I just leaned into it, and I had the opportunity, and I was fortunate enough to make that movie. And so that's the way I look at it for Greg and I. It's like like I said, Greg and I have a bunch of ideas, and I'm willing to lean into whichever one gets that traction. And I think that's just the nature of creativity anyways. It's like you get that little inspiration and you feed it. I guess this one wants to grow and go somewhere.
Well, we certainly look forward to seeing how Don't Tell Larry does in the wild, and very eager to see what you guys come up with next. Let us know if you have a Chicago screening. Maybe we can meet up and have a beer.
I would love that. Yeah. I would absolutely love that.
Or Manhattan.
Yeah, so we're Manhattan.
Yeah, either one is fine by me. That'd be great to meet in person for sure.
Let us know. We'd love to do it. And we're wishing you nothing but the best. Love the movie. Hope it does just absolutely fantastic for you guys.
Thank you. And thanks so much for the opportunity to speak with you guys. So excited and honored to be speaking with you. So thank you.
I'm really enjoying these talks we've been having with indie writers and directors. Last week, we had on Carson Lund to discuss his baseball movie Ephus, and today we shifted gears to Porper and Schimke and a satire of workplace culture. But no matter how much I enjoy it, and I know we keep threatening to do this, it's time to take a proper break. Not a Porper break, a proper break, so we can properly prepare for season 2. Call it National Lampoon's Filmographers' Summer Vacation, only instead of searching for Wally World, we'll be searching the indexes of books about our next director, who is not Quentin Tarantino.
It is not, no, nor is it David Fincher, who I can confidently say is our most name-checked director through the course of season 1. We talked about him a lot.
Yes, we certainly have. Our season 2 director will also not be Christopher Nolan, nor will it be Christopher Guest.
And it's not William Friedkin. I'm sorry, Keir. He was close, but it's not Friedkin. It's not Pierre Bogdanovich. I'm sorry, me. We'll be.
That was close.
It would have been nice. Season 3, 4, maybe. You never know. But we will be announcing who the actual director for season 2 is in the fall. Until then, we will be recording fewer episodes for the rest of the summer. When we return, we do still plan on doing these episodes where we, just peek behind the curtain of filmmaking process. But some of these episodes will be relegated to our Patreon, which is, once again, patreon.com/The Filmographers Podcast. That's patreon.com/The Filmographers Podcast.
You can join our community for absolutely free. I cannot stress that enough. That way you'll never miss a single new episode, and you'll have complete access to the Filmographers archives.
And if you'd be so kind, please remember to take a few seconds to support us wherever you're listening by leaving us a rating or review.
Thanks, as always, to Kevin Lau, our producer, Gompson, who composed and played our theme music, and Cosmo Graff, who designed our logo and our merch.
We'll be back with new episodes soon enough, but until then, enjoy your summer, and maybe we'll see you at the movies.